And welcome to Star Trek Lost Stars. Hi there, my name is Tony Morrow, and welcome to the show here at now 8:30 here on the West Coast Pacific Time. Thank you for joining us. A little bit of a different sort of setup here for me today. I mean, obviously, you saw the intro there, much of the same for every other broadcast. One big difference, though, I've got a couple different screens I'm monitoring here. Right in front of me, I have a tablet where I'm monitoring the YouTube live stream and the chat, as well as my phone monitoring the Twitch chat. And I have another program, but I only have so many screens where I can sort of pull in that chat or monitor it separately. But yeah, so for today's episode, anyway, we're going to be trying to monitor chat in a slightly different way. And hopefully that is more effective for you guys. I may not be able to respond to chat in the text as much as I'll be able to respond to it sort of in real time here and now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you are joining us on Star Trek All Stars for the very first time, then thank you for joining us here. Quick recap as to what Star Trek All Stars is. We are a group of friends playing this 4X turn-based strategy game based on the rules of Federation and Empire, produced by Amarillo Design Bureau and made practical for us using a system called Vassal, which basically is a desktop simulator that allows us to replicate the map in a digital format. We play this online here on Twitch and YouTube, sharing this with you, going through the turn progression and having you participate with us in this journey as us, the Klingon Empire, working our way through this game to be able to explore new space, expand our borders, exploit the resources we find, and exterminate the enemies who oppose us. So that's us here at Star Trek Lost Stars. If you are joining us here on YouTube, then feel free to give us a thumbs up if you can, a subscribe if you'd like to, and if you're on following us on Twitch, then please feel free to follow and let be known that you enjoy what we're doing here. Type your comments in the chat to let us know what you want to talk about, what you think is going well, and questions that you may have. So earlier today, we did a live stream at 2:30, our normal broadcast time on Saturdays, to talk about the sort of the state of things and the turn progression. Now, as we kind of get ready here, and you might have seen it just at the very, very start, but the sort of the trailer or the poster for this episode, this live stream, is this. Stay aggressive and start a war. A little bit of a play on stay calm and carry on, but that's sort of our Klingon motto, stay aggressive and start a war. Now, that might be a little bit much considering what's going on, but let's do a quick little recap of the turn for those of you who are just joining us for the very first time. I'll show you what's going on in the map, and then we'll go from there. So welcome to the map. Here we are. This is displayed in Vassal, which is the platform that we use to be able to replicate the Federation and Empire game map. As you can see here, this is a 4X or sort of open campaign map where we are exploring things. To start off the map, let me zoom out so you can see it all in its wonderful glory. Or let me put my head on the other side here so it's less distracting. Let's try that. That's a little bit better. All right, so you can see here with this sort of bigger scale view of the map, and I will move this up so it's a little bit easier to see. You can see that we have effectively an octagon style map. Not an octagon, a hexagon, thank you, style map here, 6-sided, and you can see there are currently 5 factions. We had originally 6. We lost a player at the very beginning of the campaign, hence this giant void of unexplored space over on the left. The factions, as we're going from top clockwise, we have Big Red, otherwise known as the Tholian faction, in the top left-hand corner. As we move to the right, you can see the Big Black Klingon faction. As we move south, you'll see Big Blue, otherwise known as the Federation. And we move around to the bottom, we have what I refer to as the Batman faction, because as we zoom into their ships, they look like bats on a black and yellow color scheme. This is technically the Borak faction when it comes to the concept of Federation Empire. But these are effectively being role played as BattleTech Starcom. And then in the center of the map, we have the Peruvian Horde. Peruvians, basically, for those of you who are not familiar, is essentially Gorns with feathers. So I see here, Jim. Thanks, Jim, for joining us. Looks like a decent spot for a hydrant to start, he says. Yeah, so just as a quick recap of our factions, we've got Big Red, I refer to as the Tholians. We've got Klingons, the Peruvian Horde, the Batman faction, otherwise known as BattleTech, in the bottom corner here, and then, of course, the Federation in blue. But let's zoom in and show you a couple things about this map. So for those of you, again, who may not be familiar with the game, you can see, and I will just remove all the ships and bases so you can kind of see some topography here. These hexes with the stars are our capital systems. That's basically where we started the game, each of us, and then we expand out from there. You can see that there's a couple of different icons here, and we'll use Big Red as an example because it's high contrast and easy to figure out. So the star is the capital system. You can see here these hexes with the 6 little dots. That is considered a resource. A resource provides 1 economic point of value. You can see shortly below there is a planet with this little black dot and this half circle with a black dot. So we have a hierarchy of sort of sizable planets. The first stage being a colony. Well, colony is 1 step up from a resource, provides you 1 economic point and no other issues after that. Then you have, actually, you know what? Instead of me just going off the top of my head, let me switch over to this while I pull up the actual document that we have that lays it out for us. And it will be easier for you to follow along in that context. So going to the economics tab, and I will switch over here. So as you can see here, this is laid out in a Excel spreadsheet. Most of what we do from a number crunching perspective is done on Excel. So just to give you a quick rundown of the economics. So we have a colony, we have a resource, provides you 1 economic point, a colony, which also provides you 1 economic point, a developing planet, which has 2, a minor planet, which provides you 3, a medium planet for 4, and a major planet provides you 5 economic points. Basically $5 worth of value, and away you go. Homeworlds, every system, every faction has 1 homeworld, provides you 10 EP, and then other things from there. So let's go back to the map, and let me show you what those mean. So the colony is this half circle with the little black dot. A developing planet, again, providing you 2 economic points of value, is the little circle with the black dot. A minor planet, and I'm trying to find a good example of a minor planet. Here we go. So on the Klingon side here, you've got a developing planet with the little blue, with the little dot in the circle. A minor planet provides you 3 economic points with the circle here. And as I go into the Klingon homeworld, you will also see, or the Klingon faction capital, you will see here, you will see that Kangor, this middle planet here, is a medium planet. That's the planet that's developing. Again, medium planet, then major. So the medium planet here is a big planet over top of a little planet, hence the medium. And then this full big circle here is a major planet. When it has home there, you can see that that's the home world, 10 EP, quick and easy. So that's what she looks like, ladies and gentlemen. In this game, let's do a quick recap of where we are economically and from a military faction. So in this turn, you can see that in this table, we have a number, a numerator over a denominator. So for example, with the Borak, 570 over 10, you guys can figure that out. That's basically take away a 0. So we have 57 economic points being generated by the Borak. The Federation is 62. The Klingons are 60.5. Not to worry about the neutrals. The Peruvians are 52 and the Tholians are 50.5. Now let's look at fleet cap. Fleet cap is a count of number of ships, their offensive and defensive capabilities as far as numbers. Here you'll see the Borak have 54 ships, providing them 100 attack factors, 226 defense factors, and their fleet cap, which is the maximum number of defensive factors that the economy can support, is at 225. So it's either one of two things. It's either the number that you can support or the total number value that you have. You can see here that the fleet cap is 225, but the actual number of their fleet composition is 226, meaning that they are just 1 point over their total fleet cap. You see the Federation here has a total of 97 ships, and you can see their fleet cap is 416, but their attack and defense factors combined are 295 and 406. So we roll down to the Klingons. The Klingons, you can see 81 total ships with attack factors of 238, defense of 293, but we have a fleet cap of 315. That's because we have some crippled ships. Same thing with the Feds. So our crippled ships, if they were all made correct or repaired, there would be around 315. You have the Peruvians have a total of 48 ships with 119 attack, 208 defense, and the Tholians, 88 ships, 114, 301 respectively. So the Tholians, Big Red. Generally speaking, at this point, at this tech level in the game, not very high attack factors, significant defense factors, and they have little tricks that allow them to be able to combine their units to be even more effectively defensively. And this allows them to be very hard to make any progress against, but at this moment, at this time, not really big on the attack factors, so less of a threat. As we look at the topography, you can see, and let me just remove ships and bases so it's a little easier to see. You can see that there is this sort of blue diamond graphic around Papa 11, and the same thing here for Oscar 15. This is the iconography or the topography for a wormhole or a two-way gravitational anomaly, meaning you can go through and come back, a la DS9. The sort of triangles that you see here pointing in towards the center, or as we look down here, pointing out from the middle, that is a one-way gravity well or wormhole, meaning that this over here is an example of an innie, meaning you can go through that door, and this here is an example of where you come out the other end. This particular one, November, is coming from, oh, let me move my head to the other side, is coming from the Federation in this little pocket here, and they go through there and they come out this other end. So that's an example of a gravity well, and a two-way gravity well is a wormhole. All right, here we go. So quick recap of where we were in the game versus where we are now. So as you can see, we are continuing to expand outward. We have 4 particular points of interest. The first is, of course, this little border area that we have with the Tholians. So we are building out our supply to the border, as you can see with this YBS that's here, and we're exploring to the edge of our supply, which currently is 4, and we will be building more bases along this as we explore and discover, get rid of the fog of war in these various grayed out hexes. We have this point of interest over here, which is our minor faction that was discovered, blew out, tried to pop up and destroy our exploration freighter, and we are currently working to whittle them down. We have a fleet here, Klingon New Fleet, that is set to attack, again, this faction, slowly through a war of attrition, breaking them down. They are currently ISC Home Fleet. Whoops, that's ISC Patrol. There we go. ISC Home Fleet. You can see they currently have this black line through a unit counter indicates a crippled unit. And you can see that they have a series of, excuse me, they have 11 crippled frigates, 2 light cruisers that are crippled, and a fully capable Y-era cruiser. Beyond that, in the same hex, they have a YDK, which has 2 SIDS, or 2 of 4 SIDS damaged. And they have 12 Y-era planetary ground bases. So big thing there with regards to the planetary ground bases, they provide an EW shift, electronic warfare shift. Basically, it makes it more difficult to win or cause damage and win those fights. We are, over time, wearing them down, and we will probably, the forecast right now is within the next 2 to 3 turns, we will wipe them out. Why are we choosing to take so long with that? A couple of reasons. One, it's beneficial from an economic standpoint to be in one of the 3 economic states that we have in the game. The first is peace. The second There we are. Second is war, and then the third is limited war, kind of a middle between the two. From the economic faction or the economic perspective, in peace, you earn 50% of your total potential economic input. So in this case, we have 60.5 as our economic points that we generate. That allows us to have 60.5 basically means we get 30 and a quarter economic points in peace. 50%. In limited war, which is a state of, we'll call it a police action state, where you are ramping up in the traditional game. It allows you to ramp up to war status. It gives you 75% of your economic output. And due to a previous game where a particular player was gaming the system, we are not allowed to go to full war status when dealing with minor empires, like non-player factions. So this case is an example of a non-player faction or non-player character, like an NPC. And we're not able to go to war, full war with them. Rather, we have to go to limited war. And so that provides you 75% of your economic output. Now, the advantage of limited war is that while it gives you 75%, it does not incur war turns. And war turns are when you go to war, you get access to 100% of your economic output. So in our case, that would be 60.5 EP. But it incurs war turns. Once you go past 20 war turns, you start incurring war fatigue. And that goes in steps of 100% to 75% to 50% to 40%, and then so on. So there's a degradation in your economic output depending on how many war turns you have accrued. You then are able to kind of earn those back, but at half the rate. So for every war turn that you incur, it'll take you 2 turns to get rid of that single war turn, if that makes sense. If you're at peace. If you're at limited war status, you can still recover from war turns, but it just happens at a slower rate, basically 1/3 versus 1/2. So, yeah, there's issues with that. So very happy to be at limited war status at this point, allowing us to be able to slowly wear down that faction and have the economic bump that it provides. Right. Other point of interest. You can see here along the border with the Peruvians, we have a couple things to worry about or be concerned about. The first is that in the last turn we had we'll call it a navigational error when it came to the Klingons and the Peruvians. So the Peruvians basically moved into a hex where we had an unescorted and no offensive firepower exploration freighter, and that ship took a hit, or at least it would have taken a hit had they not backed out. They decided to back away. So the exploration freighter moved out of that hex. We moved a dreadnought, the C4 with its 3 escort destroyers, into the same hex. And again, they decided to move into the hex and then moved out. So there was a little bit of a navigational confusion piece there. Again, in our previous episode, we talk about that, and that got resolved. However, as you can see, there's potential for more sort of conflict as we are continuing to explore the grayed out hexes along our border with the Peruvians. As well, you can see here that there is a exit wormhole or a gravity well that the feds have gone through, and they are showing up here on that side. And yeah, so we have a sort of a back door that the feds have into Klingon space right along the border too. So yeah, there's an issue around wormholes is a technology, and depending on your level of advancement in that technology, there are some sort of things that you have to think about. One of the big ones is when you have no research or you haven't reached the first milestone in that technology, whenever you travel through a wormhole, your ships are crippled once they get through on the other side. As you can see here, the Federation ships are crippled there, indicating that that is most likely the case. So they are crippled, not too worried about them causing any challenge or issue at this point, but being crippled and out of supply from the feds, that's going to cause an issue. So as I quickly just take a second and turn to the chat, I can see that we've got 2 folks in chat. One on the on Twitch, 2 in YouTube. So Jim Howard, I see you made a comment there. Are you still in the chat? If you are, please feel free to give us a little holler and let us know where you're calling in from, or when you're calling, where you're tuning in from, and what your experience or interest is with Federation and Empire. Hi, Jim. So I see you're there. Yeah. So tell me, what's your experience with Fed and Emp, and as I work through the final point of interest here, you can let me know. You're from Essex in the UK. All right. Well, we're here in Victoria, British Columbia, so quite the time zone difference. Essex, UK. So you must be GMT. So we 8 hours difference between us. So goodness. You're ahead of us. So is it like 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning your time? That's what it makes me think. Goodness gracious. All right, while you're answering that question, I'm just going to scroll down here and take a quick look at the border with... Oh, owned F&E since 1987, but really only played F&E about 2014. Okay, right on. Well, hey... let me tell you, Jim, one of the things that we're looking for or looking to develop here on this channel, in this community, first of all, is to develop the community of fellow Federation Empire players. That's our big focus here. And to build a player base, because as you've... Yeah, 4:51 a.m. As you know and have seen, Federation Empire is not a very popular game these days, in the sense that there are not a lot of people playing it. What we are trying to do is build up a player base of folks who like this game and would like to play this game in the future. Our player base here in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada is very small. We currently had 6. We had 6 players, lost one, so now we're down to 5. We like to try and build out a pool of people who would like to play this game. And because we do this online, because we do this turn-based, and because we can do it over email, which is how we execute it, we are looking to identify and build a player community who want to be able to play different various campaigns of this game. So if that's something you're interested to, give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the chat. I'd love to hear. And if that's the case, then we have ways for you to sort of join this game if you want in small incremental factions, but we can get to that later. So Jim, you say, I have 3 friends and we play once yearly at a 3-day convention. I've played it via Vassal. Okay, cool. Well, that's really cool that you've got 3 folks that play it. I guess the big question would be, would you be interested in playing this? Maybe not quite in this campaign, although there's ways to get in on it. Would you be interested in playing this campaign, playing in a campaign like this over Vassal, over email, and sort of doing it internationally? If you're in the UK, we're here in Canada. That'd be quite the colonial connection, you might say, and we can sort of make that happen. And again, it's turn-based. We have a bit of a schedule when it comes to progression of turns to make sure that the progression moves along and we're not sort of stalled out, and keep the engagement in the game. But other than that, we typically progress on a mutually agreed schedule by all players, and yeah, we just kind of move things along. Again, turn-based, so nothing happens until you're ready, and away you go. Okay. All right, so let's talk quickly about the border situation, then we'll talk about different ways to be able to participate in this game. So as you can see here, I'm showing the now I'm showing the border area along the southern section of our territory with the Federation. As you can see here, this is kind of a junction between the Peruvian Horde on the left of your screen and the Federation, which is to the south. So one of the points of contention with the Federation is the buildup of fleets, buildup of forces along the border. Let me show you a quick Federation 3rd Fleet. You can see that they currently have 20 ships. No, it's not 20 ships. It is. There's 9 plus 6 plus 3. Yeah, there are 20 ships. So there's 20 ships in this fleet. The term previous, there were 10. So he's doubled the size of the fleet and the offensive firepower effectively in this particular fleet in one turn. And that's quite telling. The Federation is currently and going back to fleet cap to show you that, the Federation is currently, with 97 ships, they are the largest fleet on the board. The closest in number is the Tholians, but then the closest in actual combat capability is the Klingons, with 81 ships and 238 attack to essentially 315 defense. The Federation has 295 as attack factors, which, as you can see based on our crippled status, is greater than the defense factor total of the Klingon Empire. So that's kind of a big deal. And the player has indicated in our role-playing exchanges that in a non-email auditory exchange, one of the things that was said was he's going to have to stretch soon. Stretch. One of the other players, cheers by the way, happy Saturday, or for you, Jim, I suppose it's Sunday. The only other significant empire of the 20th century that I remember hearing something along those lines from a diplomatic perspective was breathing room, which was what the Germans needed in World War II when they were taking over not Yugoslavia. Was it Yugoslavia? It was, I believe it was Yugoslavia. And so they just needed more room. They needed, at the time, they needed the agricultural resources to be able to feed their army. Lebensraum. Yes, breathing room. And so that's the quote, that's the issue, that's the challenge here when it comes to the Federation. So our objective from the Klingon Empire is to make us a hard target, to make us so problematic to engage with that it's not worth their while to do so. Rather, to redirect your attention to a more pliable partner that is someone who will acquiesce to your forceful requests and is a better target for your aggression than us. Now, a couple things that are advantageous to us here in this position on this border. One, Ptolemy hasn't met hydrants. Yeah, hydrants, yeah. Well, there are no hydrants in this game, in this particular game, although there were hydrants in the last campaign we ran. It'd be very interesting. If you're Jim, if you're a hydrant fan, we can find a way to make hydrants work for you. But you'll have to let us know how that works. So the two factors rather that are important here is one, as we saw earlier, when it came to the transit of the gravity well, both here in Gulf 19, but also down here, of course, my head's in the way. Let me move my head. Whoop. You can see here that these, this ship here came through, or these ships here came through this gravity well and are crippled. They are indicating that the Federation ships suffer crippling damage when going through gravitational anomalies and or wormholes. So, Jim, you say, I saw 9 SE. 9 second edition? I'm not sure what that means. Because they are crippled as they go through the wormhole, this wormhole comes out right next to our homeworld. That's an issue. That's a point of concern. But we know that they will not be able to transit the wormhole and be whole on the other side. And if they can't do that, that means they can't provide supply through the wormhole. Why do I know that? Let's do a quick analysis of wormhole tech. Tech tree. Wormholes. Let me move my head once again. So along the first tier of wormhole means that you must successfully explore a gravity rift, and then it starts to make you, it starts your progression here. So no crippled ships or slow units or convoys can travel through a wormhole. Ships are crippled on a 1 to 6 on a 1d6, so they're always crippled. Maximum of 1 ship can transit through a gravity rift or wormhole per battle round. The next tier after that is ships are crippled on a 5 to 6, so there's basically a 30% chance of ships being crippled as they travel through a wormhole, and a max of 2 ships can travel through a wormhole or gravity well per battle round. The next tier after that, ships are no longer crippled, and a max of 3 ships can go through per battle round. And then the next big one after that is that slow units and convoys may make transit. Why is that important? Because then you can provide supply. So if you're still at a point where you can't travel without being crippled, which would be the indication here, then at the very least, they are 20 years away from being able, and they can put research into it, but there's at least 10 years between now and when they could even possibly pull supply through that wormhole. So that's interesting. Hydrant ship equivalents. Hydrant ships. So here's a little thing about hydrant ships, at least for me. For those, so I guess this is really for you, Jim. As a former player of Starfleet Battles, and of course, current player of F&E, I used to love the old PC-based Star Trek game, Starfleet Command. And it was great. The first iteration of that game wasn't so great. The second one was better, less bugs. And the third one was the best. Even though it was the next gen, it came out around Nemesis. It was fantastic to play. Really enjoyed it. But it'd be great to see if they could somehow integrate a computer game, and I think this is an IP thing. It'd be great to see a computer game version that would allow a strategic level play like this on the F&E scale, and then when you had ship-to-ship battles, you would play it out. Sort of like Total War. Total War, you have turn-based strategy from a 10,000-foot view, and then you have your tactical battle simulation, which occurs when you have battles. You can auto-resolve or you can play them out. And I think that'd be great. If they could do a Total War Federation Empire Edition, that would be so cool. Yeah, that would be so cool. All right, so let's head back to the map and we'll zoom out and we'll talk about what's going on here. Okay. So let's focus on our different factions. The first faction I want to focus on is our Peruvian Horde in the middle. The player who is playing the Peruvian Horde is a known stirrer of the pot. He likes to stir and get things going. As a result, there are 3 ways he likes to do this. One is, of course, overt in the sense of ships on the border, different kinds of raids and attacks, and sort of like aggressive behavior that causes you to want to do something about it. Now, usually he only does that when he feels extremely confident in his position to be able to defend against a direct attack. The second is a combination of sort of role-playing and game mechanics that allow you to be able to have a conversation with the game master and creatively fabricate interesting role-playing elements that would allow others to as effectively start a fight with you. Let me give you an example. In a previous game or campaign, this player instigated a counterintelligence campaign that planted information that my faction, which at the time were the Romulans, had instigated an intelligence operation to attempt the assassination of another faction's leader, and in doing so, had tried to place the blame of that assassination attempt squarely at another player's feet. So this player, the one who's playing the Peruvians, had spent a lot of money, EP, and diplomatic prime team operations to set up this series of events. So first of all, he set up the assassination attempt, and he also set up a daisy chain of, we'll call it layers of an onion from an intelligence perspective of informants that pointed the finger towards first the intermediary player who had funded or been the root behind the assassination attempt, but then had left enough breadcrumbs to lead it eventually to me as being the person, the faction who had actually done the assassination attempt. And I had to spend EP and conduct counter-espionage operations in order to be able to unearth this deceit, which ended up then throwing the evidence squarely at the feet of this other player. Now, in the meantime, I suffered close to 10 turns of all-out war from 2 different players concurrently. I was fighting technically a 2-front war, but with 3 different factions fighting me. And it started off with 2 factions attacking me through a very sort of narrow corridor. And then a 3rd faction jumped in as an opportunistic thing. And I think that the players playing the Peruvians had well orchestrated that. Now, at the end, after I had suffered a major defeat and had to kind of lick my wounds and claw back and give up territory, he ended up paying for it in the end. The long tail of that meant that he ended up dramatically losing that campaign because the 3 factions who initially jumped me turned around and jumped on him, and that ended up being interesting. Just my sort of enemy. So, anywho, that was how that worked, and that's how that played out in that context. So, yeah, that's how that happened. So in this so for this game, in this campaign, I see that one, from a personality perspective, this player will not just sit idly by and let things evolve. He's going to want to stir the pot and start laying the groundwork for something interesting now. So the question is, based on the current status of the board, knowing that Big Blue and Big Red both have fleets in excess of 80 to 90 units, equivalent numbers at least to the Klingon fleets, what do we do about that? Do we initiate some kind of all-out war against the Peruvians? There's no real need for that, especially not now. But it's just something to be mindful for at this point. If we were going to lay out an attack against them, what would it look like? Let's just take away the ships for a sec and look at their sort of infrastructure. You can see here that they've got essentially what they're developing into 2 layers or 2 fronts of supply. They've got the front, which is going to be a series of bases built along the border here. And then they have a sort of a secondary line in behind, but it's not within reaction distance of the primary front, but rather it's 2 hexes back. So it's an interesting thing to observe that the way the bases are distributed in this area makes them a little more vulnerable than other factions. And it's, but at the same time, like, why would you want to attack them? There's no treasure to be had here. There's not a lot of resources. As you can see, there's this developing planet here, a colony here, a developing planet here, and a minor planet here. So, like, if you were going to attack them, what would be the upside, right? Unless you're going to somehow make a big push towards their homeworld, which is kind of unrealistic in this scenario, there's no real significant advantage to pushing in on the Peruvians. Yes, you would somehow cause them pain and suffering as a player, but there's no big gain to be doing that other than to, if they become somehow an existential threat, they're just an irritant otherwise, assuming those other behaviors from the previous campaigns. If we go to the Big Blue, so Big Blue is definitely the biggest threat on the board at this point, especially for us. They're along the border with us, with a very well-defended border when it comes to the bases and infrastructure that you can see. We reintroduced the units. You can see there's a lot of units along the board. I mean, these VTMs are kind of like little corvettes, mini frigates that aren't very capable on their own, but put them together and they become quite a wall of chaff. Second Fleet and Third Fleet combined are quite an offensive force, and Third Fleet being 20 units large is not insignificant. So we have to be able to build out our defensive capability in response. But there's not really, let's take away the bases and the ships for a second. If we were to attack the Federation, one, it would be a bloody mess. Like, it would just be a full slog and war. And I don't know that there's necessarily a lot of advantage to doing that. You can see that there's a handful of resources along the border, like 5, maybe 6 if you go down this far south. And certainly within reach of our units, but the meat and potatoes of their economic resources are really along the border, the edge of the galaxy here into the south. They've got this planet, which is a medium planet, which is kind of on the verge of becoming a major planet, which could be useful. 2 colonies, not too much of an issue there. So this is a 4 EP asset, and then everything else is pretty much single digits. All their other planets and various other things are kind of in the south. So where's that? Like, where's the ROI advantage of going against the Feds? I don't know that there is necessarily one. And as we look at Big Red, so purely from a militaristic perspective, we've got a huge weak point, which is this wormhole here. Yes, we've plugged the hole with a Y-dock and a fleet there, but so have they. They've got a small fleet, but a fleet nonetheless, and ships there to be able to defend it. And, you know, let's take away the ships for a sec. Lots of bases, so a really good set of infrastructure to be able to support and defend their assets. And we take away the bases, like in the vicinity of this wormhole, there's actually quite a bit. There's, I mean, it's a developing planet, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 resources, and then 2 planets, a colony, and a developing planet that could be significant. And then within spitting distance of that, you've got at least 2 other at this point, neutral factions that could be useful. Also, this wormhole is within striking distance of their homeworld. So if you're looking to be able to attack and cripple an enemy, this is really a good vector of attack. Now, the Tholians are by far the best partner we have in this game. So far, they've been the most productive economically, sharing economic convoys, these YCOMs that you see here. We've been sharing those back and forth, so they're very productive. They are, as I say, the best partner we've had so far when it comes to maintaining the peace, not being aggressive or hostile, and overall attitude and disposition. Also, the player who plays this faction is the player that I've had the most conflict with in other games. And what ends up happening is that when we end up fighting, it's just a slugfest. And I don't know that there's necessarily a lot of reward in those combats. So it is what it is. A quick look at the chat here. I see, of course, Jim, thank you for being so talkative in the chat. I see that we've got a third person in the chat. If I can ask you both to do me a quick favor. Jim, if you feel so inclined, if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick thumbs up in the, as far as a like on YouTube. And for that other player that's joined us, please make yourself known in the chat. Give us a little hoot and holler and let us know who you are. Right, so that's not refreshing, eh? Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, that's better. View queue. Boom. I'm experimenting, by the way. Today I use a software production suite called vMix, and I'm using one of their tools called vMix Social to be able to monitor chat, and I'm trying to use it. It's trying to do a combination of monitoring chat and use that tool. Using the tools being a little cumbersome right now, but I can see that it is working, so that's great to see. Oh, that's my countdown timer. Okay, so let's take a quick look at. Oh, by the way, for Jim, and I'm not sure if the other person who's joined the chat or joined the game, join the stream. Thank you. If you've had a chance to see the intro video for the stream, the thing that was showing during the first 5 minutes as the streaming software connects and starts to play, and we make sure everybody can join the live stream. If you saw that or not, if you did, wouldn't mind your 2 cents on what you thought of that, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether you would like to see different kind of features in that that little video sequence. Just put that together as a intro sequence for the stream, and like I said, would love to know your opinions on it. Jim saying, "Yep, saw that." Yeah, like I say, would love to know your 2 cents on whether it was good, bad, or otherwise, or if you don't have an opinion one way or the other, that's good too. Good, he says. Great, thank you. So, with 2 folks in the chat, and I'm about 50 minutes into the stream here, and I've kind of laid it all out where we're at in the game. Let me turn it to you. First of all, from what I've shown you on the map, what do you think? We have our 3 factions that we are bordering with. Big Red, the Tholians, the Peruvian Horde, and the Federation, Big Blue. What are your thoughts with regards, and I'll zoom out here so the map's a little bit easier to sort of take in the big picture. Scroll down a little bit. So what do you think when it comes to, you know what, I'll switch sides. It's just a little easier if my head fits into that little white spot there. Perfect. So what do you think when it comes to the distribution here and what we should do? One other factor to think about in our strategic perspective is what I call the Batman faction. So why do I call them the Batman faction? Let me show you. See this little YSCR right here? I'll zoom in a little. Oh, I can't zoom in anymore. See how their ships kind of look like bats? And it's a black and yellow color scheme. Batman faction, right? Okay. Jim, just reading your comment now. Let me take a quick look. All right. So, Jim, you say you need to boost your economy and build a network of bases 4 hexes apart. All right, so 2 things about that. One, when it comes to the economy, yes, boosting the economy. So how do you boost an economy in this game? The first way is from discovery. So you need to be able to explore and explore the gray hexes or the fog of war hexes and discover things like resources, planets, and otherwise. The more you do that, the more you're going to discover resources and explore those pieces. From that perspective, first of all, from a footprint of what we have available, you can see that everyone's got a good chunk of space available to them. The Peruvians probably, this yellow area that you can see here is the border or the neutral zone that they've negotiated with their neighbors. Obviously, they're a little restricted in that respect. We have sort of secured ourselves a good chunk of space here. And I would say that a little over 50% of the space that we have mapped out here is explored. So we got lots of room to explore, and we currently have, with the exception of, so when it comes to exploration vessels, we have 2 constraints. The first is that we can only have as many as 3 small exploration freighters. Those are these little guys down here. We can have a maximum of 3 of those. And then we can have a maximum of 3 large exploration freighters or survey cruisers. We have 3 of those. The D4E is an exploration cruiser. The D3E is an exploration cruiser. And as I said, the D4E is an exploration cruiser. So those ships, we've maxed out on those. We have 2 YFESs, or the small exploration freighters. Yes, we have to build a 3rd one. The 3rd one had been destroyed by these guys here. So it's a matter of finding an opportunity to be able to build those. At the moment, the focus has been around building and expanding our fleet because of the building military threat that exists on our borders. In addition to the exploration and discovery of new resources, another way you can do it is by improving the attitude on various planets. Let me show you how. So, We talked about colonies being on the top of this list and homeworlds being on the near the bottom of this list, as you can see here. So resources at the top, homeworlds on the bottom. Their attitude, planetary attitude, affects your economic production. If they are at the maximum top economic attitude, you can see that for a resource, nothing, colony, nothing, developing planet, nothing, minor planet, there's an increase of half an EP, medium planet, half an EP, and a major planet, an increase of 1 EP. And then, of course, for the homeworld is +2. We are currently, as you can see, Klingon capital. Homeworld's at a positive happy plus. The developing planet's a happy plus. And we're currently working on improving Kadrak because this previously was a colony and is now a minor planet. And we're just looking to increase the attitude here to H plus, which will be the next stage after F. And then it'll give us an extra 0.5. In addition to that, you're going to see, as I remove the bases here, you're going to see that we have a number of planets in close proximity to the homeworld. And we're going to want to increase the attitude here for this planet, and then these guys, and then these planets out here. This planet here specifically also is one attitude shift away from being significantly give us the 0.5 bump. So once this goes to happy plus, we'll move it over here, upgrade that, move it back to here, upgrade that, and so on and so forth. That's the plan. Now, when it comes to bases, oh, hold on. 3 words. Do it faster. Okay, so let's see. Yes, these are the Borak, or as I like to call them, slaves to the kingdom. Nice. 3 words. Do it faster than that. Survey cruisers. Yet survey cruisers. So we can only build 3 survey cruisers. We already have our maximum survey cruisers. As many as you can make until you're about 75%. 75%, right. So we can only, like I say, we can only build. We are at currently the maximum of our survey cruisers and the maximum of our exploration freighters. Well, I've got 1 I can build. However, the largest class hull, which are dreadnoughts and above, when equipped with a prime team, have a better than possibility of they have the equivalent exploration capability of a survey cruiser. So you will notice that I have a C4 dreadnought with a prime team conducting exploration operations here as well. Now I have 1 in this fleet here, Green Fleet, and I have 1 up here in New Fleet coordinating the military efforts in this area. Once that's complete, we're going to resume our dreadnought building project or program to be able to build out more dreadnoughts, for the command capability within fleets, but also to equip them with prime teams and do more exploration. So yes, get those ships up and running so that they can do their job as basically double as exploration ships and just pound out the exploration. I'd build an onion-type empire and push eco to the max. Obviously, you need a few warships too, especially as you have an aggressive fed player. When you say an onion-type empire, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'd be interested to know what you mean by that. Let's talk about the bases, 4 hexes apart. So one of the things that's, this is the fourth? This is the 4th campaign that I've played with these guys on this platform. And the rules are always evolving, but this is some of the things I noticed. In the first game that I ever played, I pushed the base building to the edge of the supply. So that ended up being initially 2, and then as supply went to 3, I went to 3, and then 4, 4. So I started building at the edge of supply. What this ended up doing was pushing bases to beyond the reaction distance of the sensors. What does that mean? You will notice, as I zoom in, that's the maximum I can zoom in. So for example, this base here, you will notice it has this little white diamond here. Now, Jim, I'm sure you already know this, but this is a little FYI for those who don't. That means it has special sensors or like has the equivalent of scout sensors. that gives it a capability of being able to see or detect things at a 2 hex distance. It also gives it the capability, should ships be there, movable ships, has the ability to do extended reaction, meaning that if something flies by or comes within 2 hexes of it, let's say, for example, these Federation ships, let's say there's a ship, let's say this series of ships is actually on a base right here. So these YDDs go to this base, and as soon as it moves there, I can move towards them, so into India 19, and then if they move to India 18, I can move up to India 18 and encounter them there. Basically, there's a one-step, two-step reaction that occurs that allows me to move and support other units within 2 hexes. This is really important for bases because you can have ships not necessarily on the front, and they can be 1 hex or 1 sort of onion layer behind, and they can respond to threats on the front line. Scout capability. Yeah. So basically, these bases have the same capability as scouts in that respect. And so it allows ships, fleets to be able to respond at an extended or 2 hex distance from the base. This allows mutual support. It also creates redundancy in the supply. And one of the things that I found in experience in fighting long drawn out wars in this game, once they start fast. You really need the redundancy to be able to survive the waves of onslaught that you'll be facing against a potentially strong opponent, and to have the repair capability to be able to put ships on the front line. So the question is, should I build bases out to the maximum edge of my supply? As it is right now, my bases are already providing me enough supply. So let me show you supply, set supply to 4, which is what my supply currently is at. Yep, thank you. And then I will show you the Klingon supply. So I know this is a great color match. It's like gray on black and gray and white. It's terrible. But this shows you nonetheless the supply reach that I currently have. So all the hexes that are sort of highlighted is where my supply goes to. And as you can see, my supply effectively reaches almost all the hexes that I have within spitting distance or within distance of me to be able to explore. I'll be building a base here in this hex in Papa 29, excuse me, and that will be able to extend my ability to explore the neutral zone, which I will do post-haste, and then, of course, continue to explore the rest. But as you can see here, my reach at the moment exceeds my capacity to be able to explore it. So that's kind of where we're at on that piece. Yes, I can already hear you, Jim, without even you saying it. Do it faster. Aye, sir. All right. So here we are, just a little over an hour. Cheers, everybody. Happy Saturday. Or Sunday morning for you, Jim. And here's the last little bit before we get going. If you are interested in playing this game and joining us in this campaign, first of all, thank you so much for your interest. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and or following us on Twitch. Either one and or all is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already followed us on Twitch, or you're not or you're a YouTube watcher and not on Twitch, then feel free to the details are usually in the description of the video. If not, you can go to the About tab and you can find us there. Twitch is under the tag BB Scotian. BB Scotian is a reference to my Nova Scotian heritage. Back when I had hair, it was blonde, and I do have blue eyes. So blonde hair, blue-eyed Nova Scotian. That's where that comes from. Anyways, that's where we are on Twitch. You'll find that you'll be able to see the Klingon head in the logo. It'll be really easy to see. So if you see us there, great. And if you can, give us a follow. If you're joining us and subscribing to us on YouTube, fantastic. Thank you so much. And if you want to participate in this game, like actually play or have like a faction or have input and what's going on, then head over to patreon.com/Lost Stars, and you can take a look at the sort of the membership levels. And if you are so inclined, you can feel free to support us there. And what that does is it gives you an ability to interact with the game. You can be basically the captain of a ship and have your own ship named after you and float around and give direction on how you want that ship to move around. You can be the commander of a task group of up to 3 ships and move around and cause havoc and do that if you wish. You can also be a fleet commander in charge of up to 10 ships in a fleet with a command ship that we will provide you. And if you want to go to the ultimate level, you can be a governor of a province. What that means is that we will carve out a area of the Klingon Empire for you to control, and you will be responsible for its economic and defensive development, as well as being on all these different incentive levels, joining us on Discord and participating in strategy and tactical sessions where we will discuss strategy and how we want to be able to move forward in this game, work together to come up with a winning strategy, and effectively crush the enemies of the Empire. Jim, you say, do you need tugs to place bases as per usual? Yes. Yes. So at this early stage of the game, knowing that we run the early years campaign going forward. So what that means is we have different tiers of technology. We have W, then Y, then M, then GW. W and Y, as you can see, there are various ships here. And not so much for the Klingons because the designations are a little different, but you can see here, for example, on the Tholians, they have Y, CPC, Y, DK, and then if we go down to the Borak, you will notice that they have, where's a W? There's a W ship around here somewhere. Oh, they might have removed most of their W ships. They had a bunch of W ships floating around here a moment ago. But either way, we work our way through W to Y, then M, and then GW. I have yet to be part of a campaign that's effectively reached the GW era for all factions. There was one faction who got to GW last game, and that was not necessarily a fluke, but that particular player was in a very beneficial position to just dump EP into research and development. Let me show you very quickly an example of our spreadsheet before we get going here. Actually, you know what? I will save that for another live stream. We can talk about that if you would like. But effectively, we start off at W, work to Y. Once you get to the M era, there's an opportunity to open up mobile bases, and you can deploy those. Otherwise, in order to be able to build a YBS, at this point, YBSs and YDKs are the bases that are available. You can do that with a convoy, a Y era convoy, and or a tug. For the Klingon Empire, tugs are the T4s that you can see here. We also have a TGB that is available to be built. There will be one built in the next turn, and will be showing up, and you'll see that on the map. And they can build modern era structures if you have them available, which we don't have yet. There'll be a number of turns before we're able to build Y era bases and so on. So that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen, on the recap of the turn, on the recap of our situation, and our sort of assessment of the different factions, our ability to, the pros and cons of being able to pick a fight with them, and whether it's in our best interest to do so. If you have any other comments or things you want to add, please add them in the chat, and we can review them after the fact. Jim, thank you so much for being so engaging on the brain fart. Thank you for being so engaging in the chat. Really appreciate it. And if you are interested, then please feel free. You can reach out either through the YouTube channel, leave us a message on Twitch. And if you want to get more involved as far as like if you want to actually participate in the game, or you and your friends, you mentioned you had a couple of friends you play F&E with. If this is something that would be of interest to you, and at the very least you guys could perhaps participate and take control of some minor factions if you'd like, or you would like to be part of the Klingon Empire and drive task groups, fleets, and or provinces, you let me know, and we can move that ball forward as is best. Other than that, it has been a pleasure to share your live streaming screens this evening. I'll have a chat with them. Happy face. Thank you, Jim. Very much appreciate it. And with that being said, it's been a pleasure. Good morning to you, Jim. I hope you have a wonderful and effective Sunday. As again, it is a 3-day holiday here in Canada, so we'll be live streaming not only this evening. It is currently 9:34 on the Pacific Coast. we'll be doing this again on Sunday and on Monday. Take a monitor the channel for the scheduled stream with the thumbnail that will go up, as well as you can check out our stream schedule on Twitch if you're looking for that as well. Timings might be a little bit flexible on when those videos will pop up, but if you miss us on the live stream, you can always join us on the replay. And in any and all ways, thank you so much for joining us, your support, your patronage on the viewing side. And I'm looking forward to having folks like you, talking to you, Jim, walking along this path with us as we expand, exploit, exterminate our enemies. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Bye for now.